Welcome to another episode of Bum with a Wrench. I'm your host Daniel, and on today's episode, back on the Camaro. It's good. Been working on this thing a lot. Need to get more work done with it, I'll tell you that much. So like I said, number one thing right now before I get into any more wiring is to get the battery in the car. Need to do that. Got a couple days before the 4th of July. On those last episodes we worked on S2000 124 Jeep. Now that I got a couple days and a little bit of time to work on this thing, I want to get the battery in it. So I was taking a look at it earlier. I was going to remove the front bumper on it, but I don't think I need to. The bumper's so small. And to take the brackets out, you have to drop that lower valance piece, or it comes off with it, or comes through it. I don't know. Anyways, it's not that big. I don't think it's going to be in the way, so I'm going to leave that. But I do need to pull the grill. So let me grab a drill real quick. And a magnet tray. Magnet trays are great. Just don't put them on the paint. Let's get this. Oh, that's nice. That's what you want. Screws that don't go through. Awesome. All right, was able to get the grill out. A little bit of a struggle, mainly because everything was just kind of not done very good. Like you can see, they use these chintzy little nuts and stuff instead of actually just putting the right clip on there. And you can see here where it's got the hole, where it's supposed to go through, but it's drilled way down here. That's probably why the bezel didn't sit on here right. It's cracked down here at the bottom. You see? I might be able to fix that, but honestly, with everything else just hokey with this thing, I'm gonna scrap it and get a new one. Because, you know, car's worth it. So the bezels and stuff, they all got little rock chips and stuff on it. This, you gotta remember, the build on this car is like, I think we determined that it was like 20 years old or something. I don't know. Might be less than that, who knows. It's been a well-kept 20 years, but I mean, there's a few things about the car that, you know, that have led me to believe that it, you know, there were certain guys that were working on it that weren't quite at the top of their field. Battery tray. So I ordered this battery tray off of Amazon, and it fits like I ordered it off of Amazon. But it'll work for now. So it'll work for the purpose of putting it in there and getting the airlines, or I mean not the airlines, the power steering lines routed correctly and set up. Let me get you guys over here. Let's see. Okay. Well, how many modes this thing's got? 2, I guess. Okay. Let me get you over here. Show you what. So what I did is I went on to Classic Industries, which again, love this car, because I can just go on to Classic Industries and buy basically whatever I want. But you'll see over here where the battery tray is, I mean, it's in there, it fits okay, but these 2 bolt holes right here don't really line up. I mean, they do, but they kind of don't at the same time, if that makes any kind of sense. So, you know, it'll help me to get it. It's just not right. When I looked up the one on somebody's got some awesome exhaust. When I looked up the one on Classic Industries, it was shaped a little different, and you can see down here in the front, it was shaped a little different, and that one, as it's sitting in the car, is kind of crooked this way, I think. So, and it's supposed to sit kind of fairly straight in the car. So, just didn't like the way it fit, didn't like the way it looked. So you can see why I took the grill out. I wanted to get to this area real easy because it's this line right here that I need to rebend. So I wanted to be able to take that off and kind of make sure that all of this is secured correctly and everything looks right, especially now that I've seen, you know, the really bad hardware and stuff that they had on here holding it together. These bolts were missing. A couple of these were in here, but not all of them. Like this one and this one, I think, were the only 2 that were actually in here. There's another one here and another one here. So it was missing half the hardware on each side. The top actually had it in place, but the bottom only had the outer pieces. Then the screws that hold the bezel in, they had little nuts and stuff behind them. Just bad. Shouldn't do that, you know. When you start doing stuff like that, it really shows in the final product. Kind of like what I was saying with, you know, I don't like just cutting corners or saying that's good enough. You know, because when you say that's good enough, that's what it looks like. Just good enough. I'm trying to go for really awesome on this car. Honestly, if this was my 65 hardtop, I wouldn't have done that either. I would have taken it out. Surprisingly enough, I did get the battery tray for my 65 hardtop on Amazon as well, but it looks just fine. So, and this one, maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's just the way it is. But I did read in the reviews that a couple people said that they had to wobble out the hole to make the tray fit. But, you know, that's okay, I guess. So I'm looking, and I'm not seeing a way for me to be able to put the low pressure hose, because the low pressure hose, you know, is pretty big and thick. Let me see if I can snake it underneath this tray real quick. Yeah, see, I just don't see that being able to. I mean, it could, but if you did that, I mean, it would be all over top of that battery tray. It's a tight bend. It's kind of crushed between the inner fender well and the battery tray. I mean, I can make it work, but it's just, when you think of, you know, air conditioning lines and hoses and stuff, you don't want them to bind on anything, you know. It's definitely not good when they do that. Let me show you. This one is kind of binding on all corners. See down here. Right there. So right as this big hose comes up, it's trapped against the tray here and against the bottom underneath. It fits, it does fit, and it doesn't kink it. It's just big enough. But, you know, if I wrapped it in a line, so you can also see that the line is kind of bent back. If I bend it up, then it definitely wants to contact it even more. And I would need it something more like this. If I went, no, I can't do that because that moves both. I need to drop this inner fender well is what I need to do. Because if I take that inner fender well out, it's going to allow me to see the lines. I don't know. At this point, not really sure how I want to go about this. You know, these are important steps. Anytime you're working on something, you would definitely want to see it all the way through and not hurry just to get through it. Just doesn't seem like that's what they would want you to do. I mean, maybe it's supposed to go underneath. Just lightly screw these two together. Of course, that's the problem when you put those line holders on. It's got a holder like a clamp that holds both the high and low pressure hard lines that are up in the fender, holds them together, you know, because as a pair, they're stronger. So if I move one, they both move. That's down there. I guess that's, yeah, that's not bad. Okay. It's not as bad as I thought. When I hold it down against the, it still moves okay. I mean, it's definitely in contact, but it's not being pinched. So if I wrapped it, took like a piece of heater hose or something and put around it, it would protect it. Now it's definitely too short, I think, right? Yeah, I mean, you don't want it to go, I want it to go down, and basically I'd probably want it the same length that it was before I cut it, surprisingly, or not surprisingly, because, you know, I mean, I could hook it up like this. That'd probably work just fine, but then you got this hose that takes off at a hard angle toward the battery tray, where the rest of them kind of go down and around. And so I would remake it. I'd want it to do something more like this. That just seems better. And there's a lot of contact points down here as well. I guess that's okay. I'll just have to, like this one here, this heater hose, I don't know if you can see this, but this heater hose here, I just took another little piece of heater hose, chopped it, and put it right there so that when it sits on the edge of this inner fender rail, it won't cut through it. I just noticed I don't have any hose clamps on those either. They're just sitting there. That's okay. My plan is to, you know, once I'm at the point where I feel like things are good and I'm going to start cooling with, you know, coolant with fluid, and you know, starting to get the car ready to fire. Obviously, I'm going to go through and do a multi-point inspection, make sure that I haven't forgotten anything. There's wires aren't touching the headers, you know, all that kind of stuff. So this might work. All right. Well, let me work on this a bit more, see what I come up with, and then we'll see how far we get on this. All right, guys. Well, most everything is still packed away in boxes, so what I could find was this hose here for the low pressure that mounts to the side of the pump. What it doesn't have is a service port on it, and the ones that have service ports are a little bit longer. However, I'm going to use this one. I did order some, as well as I did a bunch of research too on the correct starter for this car, and found the correct starter, because the starter that's in it I don't think is right. It just doesn't sound good. It was a Napa special, so, you know, rebuilt, remanned, that kind of stuff off an 09 Corvette, which, doing a bunch of research, I think that's the right starter. Because what I was seeing is the Silverado Tahoe up to like 2012, I could be wrong on the years, and then the starting at or up to 09 Corvette, I forgot, different flange plate, and it's got this little cutout on the side, so when you go to stick it in, it kind of goes around this bump in the I can't remember if it's the block or where the block meets the oil pan. Anyways, there's a nub there that it's got to clear. This has definitely got it, so that's why I went through all those different starters trying to find the right one. I thought a modern Camaro would be the right one, but it was not. So I think the right starter's coming. So it's a high torque, you know, good brand, so it won't sound, well, it'll sound like a high torque, which is fine, because, you know, this build kind of fits that noise that a high torque would make. But the noise this thing makes is like I went to AutoZone and bought AutoZone starter for my Chevy pickup, and now it makes this funky noise. Definitely don't want that. So ordered that other starter. But for now, let's keep moving on this air conditioning. So I do need to take this line out. There's a puddle of green fluid underneath the car now. It looks like Slimer threw up. That's okay, I guess. Okay. Let's get this low pressure line out of here. I did order up the new grill and stuff for this car too. So got all that ordered. It's frustrating on a car this expensive to see craftsmanship that way. And really what it comes down to is what I've always said not to do when building these cars, and that's get in a hurry. Of course, you know, I'm sure whoever bought it, it was just their, or built it, did that shoddy work. It was just their job. It wasn't their car. And so to them it was, well, job finished, on to the next. You know? So, I don't know, guessing, hoping that's it. But, you know, not going to leave it that way, of course. Alright. And this should just fit right in there, which I always just kind of test fit these to make sure that there's no problems. These do always fit a little bit snug. So if you're working with these, they are a little bit on the snug side, just so you know. Although this one doesn't feel like it is straight. There we go. Always start them by hand. Of course, never get into that binding and then. So the one thing I do have to pay attention to is the fact that low pressure hose is going to be longer. And again, I'm just using this for mock-up, so let me go grab that other straight low pressure. I'll show you. I don't know if I've showed you this before, but let's go take a look over here. So this is what I usually buy, a couple of these. Right now I have about 3 of them in stock. And what they are is they're just a bunch of hose, high pressure, low pressure, and fittings, and a dryer, and they're by Vintage Air. I always keep a pack of these around. Right now I have about 3 of them because I'm always doing AC work and waiting for these fittings to come in. When you're trying to get the job done is annoying, which I'm doing now, is waiting for fittings to come in. This is the one I need. And so I always like to keep a couple of those. And then it's going to be this fitting here, which, yep, that is the same fitting. Okay. The owner of these cars likes to have AC, which I don't blame him. You know, getting old. AC's nice. Speaking of AC, the AC in the shop's out. So it is a hot, sweaty day today. Yesterday it was working, and then all of a sudden she no work no more. Man, this is such a. I still just don't like this setup. I know there's supposed to be a clamp up here that holds these so they don't just rattle around. Yeah, it's supposed to be like that, I think. And basically what they were doing is the brace that comes across to the fender was holding the bracket that held these AC lines from jiggling around. All right. Like I said yesterday, I think I got to take that inner fender well out. As much as I don't want to, I think I need to. So let me get this done right quick. I've never taken one out of a Camaro before, so I don't know if I can take it out without taking the fender off. I think I can. Usually they come out without having to disassemble the whole car. Yeah, that looks like it would come out. Man, it really goes up front though, don't it? Okay. All right. Let me get this jacked up a bit. And get that inner fender well out. I think that's the next step. Okay. Just watched a couple videos on if it's possible to remove the inner fender from this car without removing the fender. And the consensus between a whole lot of people and videos says that it is possible. However, it's not an easy job. And there's a number of things that I have to take off the car. On the convertibles, apparently you have to take the headlight out, and there's a bucket in here you have to take out to get to a screw. Yeah, it makes sense because I can't see it. That's back in the fender in here. Now that's just on the convertibles. Of course, I am working on a 68 convertible, and the few videos that I saw said the 7s and 8s, the convertibles, had that in there where the 9 doesn't. The 7 and 8 are the most common to closest in relation to each other. Although the 7 and the 8 do have its differences, they're pretty close to being the same car. The 9 is a little bit different. So, you know, this is another reason why I always preach about thinking about what you're doing as you're doing it, and more importantly, thinking about how you can work on it after you're done doing whatever you got to do. Because just like this last person that did the AC lines that go through there for the vintage air, they just stuck what looks like a P-clamp or a Del clamp with a nut on one side that actually goes through the bolt that holds that fender brace. Now, if you need to remove that fender brace, that nut's going to fall down on the fender. Could I fish my arm in there and get it back together? Sure. Probably. Is it the right fix? Absolutely not. And so, you know, always trying to, you know, build the best product that I possibly can. You know, not only for myself when I have to work on it, but for the next guy that owns this car, because hopefully it'll be around forever. You know, it's a really nice car to work on. So everything's done in such a way that you're not fighting it. Now, how I'm going to fix that, I don't know. Haven't seen it yet. That's why I need to remove the inner fender well. But before I do that, I need to remove this lower corner cap here. I need to remove that headlight bucket and that bolt that's from the inside. There's a bracket back here in the corner on the inside that I have to remove. It looks like it's 4 bolts that go down to the frame, the firewall, and the inner fender kind of gives it strength right there in that corner. And from what everyone says, it is possible to remove it. However, it's not an easy task at all whatsoever. Now, I need to remove that with the fender in place because, again, I got to be able to find a solution to that clamping mechanism that goes through the fender brace to the core support. So taking the fender off isn't going to do me any good because I have no idea how or where I need to put that clamping mechanism. And maybe that's why it is the way it is. But again, if you would have thought through the problem, you'd have realized that later on when you need to service the vehicle, there's absolutely no way to get to that. So it's not about just making stuff extremely high end or show quality or nice. It's about making it usable, making the car usable in a way that you can work on it later in the future, because you can make it as nice as you want, but you're still going to have to work on it. That's the way it goes. You're never done. You're just either on long test drives or long pauses in between working on the car. The car's never done. No matter what condition it's in, it's never done. You're always working on it. So now that I've watched a couple videos and seen exactly how big of a pain this actually is, you know, I'm super excited about this. This is going to be fantastic. I did jack it up in the front, which I don't like because the jack is on that really nice Chassis Works frame. But such is life. I do have jack stands underneath of it. However, I didn't let the jack down onto the jack stands. They're just right there because I don't want the jack stands to make a dent in that Chassis Works. But if for some reason the jack does fail, that'll catch because they're basically just, I mean, a hair from actually touching the frame. So it'll be fine. There's safety under there. So I don't know. Let me get working on this and see what happens. I don't know. All right. I got updates. So after I took the headlight bucket out of the Camaro, what I noticed is that I can see right up inside of there where I need to get to. Not only that, I can put my arm in there. So that's great. I don't think I'm going to have to take the inner fender well out of this car, because the more I was looking at it, the more it looked like it was not actually going to be possible. So I think I finally caught a break for once. So I got a couple different problems to solve now. One, I got loose lines. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there's, you know, that my high and low pressure AC lines are loose. So I need to secure those. It did have a small P-clamp or a Del clamp, depending on who you're talking to. That was wrapped around the high pressure, but it wasn't clamped to anything. There was no, I don't know what it was supposed to be connected to, because I can't see anything. It almost looked like, oh, I'll bet you that's what it did. So in there's a heater control valve, and then I just right now noticed that there's some of that foam stuff up against the fender, where you can see where the lines were touching it. And then if you push that up against it, that P-clamp basically lines up right with that bracket for that heater control valve. Now at some point somebody must have had that loose and the bracket came off, and so that's probably, that makes sense. So what I thought somebody was doing was actually holding that bracket in there, that P-clamp in with the bracket that the fender brace went to. But what I discovered was, here it is here. This is the actual nut that's welded. You can see the welds on the back there. That nut's supposed to be welded to the inner part of the fender. And I guess at some point, the welds must have popped, which leaves me in a in a pretty bad spot because, one, I can't weld this back onto the fender without destroying the paint, which we're not going to do. So then it leaves me with how to fix this. That part. That is the so how to fix this. What I'm thinking right now, and you're probably not going to like it, is a riv nut is about the only way I can think to get a threaded device on that fender. Because normally if I was building the car and it wasn't painted yet, I would just weld this back onto the fender and we'd be good to go. But even if I were to take the fender off the car and weld this, that really nice paint would be destroyed. And you talk to any painter, and silver is one of the hardest colors to match because of just how it is, how it lays out. Now I've seen some really awesome painters that do phenomenal work where you can't tell. I had this really sparkly orange Lamborghini that had this special Lamborghini color on it, and I thought there was absolutely no way anybody could ever match that. Well, I took a panel to the painter that I normally work with, and they tried their best. Wasn't even close. I went over to Lamborghini and talked to them and asked them who they dealt with. They gave me the shop that they dealt with. I talked to their shop and they said, oh yeah, no, our painter can do it. It's going to take a while, but he can do it. Okay, cool. So I dropped the car off, dropped the panel off 2 months later. So I talked to them and I'm like, hey, what's going on? It's just a little small panel. They said, yeah, but the thing is that what the painter does is he comes in and he'll do a test piece, right? He'll spray a little card or whatever he sprays of that color, and then he matches, and then he puts it up to the car and see how well it matches. And based on the relative humidity, temperature, the way he mixed that time, he may hit it or not. And so what their plan was is they were going to get it close enough that they could, close as they could possibly get it, and then spray a test patch, have me come down and approve it, and then they were going to spray it. Well, 2 months went by, and the painter one afternoon, whenever he did, he finally had the right humidity, temperature, mix, everything, and when he sprayed his test piece, it came out flawless. You could not tell. You would have thought the whole car was painted at that time. So he immediately sprayed the panel and just painted the panel. And it was just a little, on a Lamborghini Huracan, it's the panel across the back of the car that goes between the two rear quarters. Basically what somebody had done is they'd put a aftermarket wing, I have it, it's around here somewhere, carbon fiber with titanium, mounting, but what they mounted it to would be like mounting it to this header panel. The wing would have done nothing but bend the crap out of that back piece, because in order for a wing to actually work, it has to push on the frame of the vehicle. And a good example of this is if you look at the new Ford GTD, that new Mustang, you'll notice that bracket actually goes up through the quarters, because where it's pushing makes a difference. Look at a Porsche GT2, GT3, where the rear wing actually goes through and pushes on the car. That's what makes a difference. If you mount it to a trunk lid or to like this header panel for whatever reason, if you wanted to, it wouldn't do anything but bend the crap out of that panel. Same with that Lamborghini Huracan. One, it didn't look horrible. It didn't look hideous. It wasn't the worst looking thing, but it was just retarded. You wouldn't, why? So we took it off. The car looked way better with it. However, there's 4 holes in the back of it. That's a whole nother story. But had to have it fixed and painted. Longer story longer, there's no way I could actually weld this and fix the paint so that you couldn't tell. It would be incredibly expensive and very time consuming for this nut. Not going to do that. I mean, the other option is you could take the fender off, weld this, and then paint that lower portion of the fender like trim black, like the rest of the engine bay, but then it would look weird. But at least you would have it to where you couldn't tell that you welded this. Again, why would you do that? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a riv nut in there and then get a little bit of silver paint. Now there's that fender brace that goes over top of it. You'll never be able to tell that I did that because that fender brace will cover it. But just in case you can see down past the fender brace, I don't want somebody to see that little kind of goldish copper, you know, riv nut. So I'll put a little bit of silver paint on it, put the bolt in there. You'll never know it was there. That's how I'm going to fix it. Although now I need to figure out if I have the right riv nut, where the riv nuts are, and then get that working and fixed. Once I get that put back together and I tie down the AC lines, then I can go ahead at that point and get this wrapped up. Anyways, let me get working on this and I'll get back to you. Okay, we got that figured out. So what I did was, off camera, because I didn't want to, you know, send people into the hospital with a heart attack, was I lightly made that hole that the bolt goes through just a little bit bigger, because the size of bolt that it uses is a 5/16 18. This is a 5/16 18 riv nut. Now again, you're going to see that little washer kind of shank sticking out. That's going to be on the outside of the fender. Nothing I can do about that. I would love to have it sit flush. Honestly, just not possible. So, made the hole in the fender one step bigger than the hole that was there to accept this riv nut. So now let's just go ahead and pop this in place. There we go. Nice and tight. Never want to go too hard on these. I've seen guys break the mandrels off. If you do, it's easy enough to generally get the mandrel back out, but then you've broken your tool. So now let me show you what that looks like. So not bad. Again, you see a little bit sticking out. Not a whole heck of a lot I could do about that to fix this actual problem. So like I said, what I'm going to do is put a little bit of silver paint on this. That way it matches the fender a little bit more. You'll see the brace stick off just a little bit. It'll look like you have a washer behind it. That's the only way I could fix this, honestly, without completely destroying the car. I mean, maybe you're in the back of your mind, you got a better idea. You could use JB weld with that nut and gamble. Odds are JB weld's just going to come loose. JB weld doesn't do so well with like trying to hold a nut still. JB weld is great for, a lot of other things, but as a glue, it doesn't work too well for that. But anyways, let me get working on this and I'll get back with you guys. Well, that is one more problem solved. We were able to get that captured nut or welded nut or whatever that thing's called and the fender fixed. I did order some silver touch-up paint. It'll be here on Saturday. I just had that shipped to the house. I fixed the Adele clamp that clamps to where the heater core, not heater core, heater control valve is bolted to the fender. So was able to get that reconnected and that fixed back up. So now the lines that are down here don't jiggle anymore. Great, fixed that. The one thing I didn't like was that the fasteners that they had it attached with are just Allen. These look to be galvanized. Not a fan of these. These will rust really quick, especially we plan on actually using this car quite a bit. So I did order some stainless steel. These look to be 1024. So I ordered some stainless steel button head Allen to replace them. Again, they'll be here on Saturday, no big deal. I'll just take them out one at a time and replace those. So that will be put back together. So we can just go ahead and throw this back in there for now. That way that stays tightly secured to the car and we don't lose that P-clamp, Adele clamp, whatever you want to call it. These screws would be fine, honestly. There is no problem with them. The only issue is just that over time they're going to corrode. I'm here now, I'm working on it. Again, I'm not in a hurry. I do want to get the car done, but I can always switch those out. Like I said, just one at a time, take one out, put the next one out, take one out, so on. So that'll do it for that. So happy, finally got that fixed. I'm glad I didn't have to take that inner fender well out. Glad I could reach through the headlight bucket and get to what I needed to get that fixed. Big success. I call that a big win. So next, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the 90-degree low pressure hose to come in because the routing around that battery tray is so tight that I want it to be right. So I know the real one, the one that actually has the service line on it is going to be a little bit longer. I don't want to have to guess wrong. I could always leave the line long and trim it down, but to me that's a waste of potential, hose that I could use on another car. So don't want to do that. Again, there's no hurry. Don't need to hurry, and I want to take my time, make sure everything's done right with this car, and it all fits the way it's supposed to. So I think what my plan is right now is to end this video here. That'll give me the last video before the 4th of July. We'll come back after the 4th when some of these parts have come in, and then I'll be able to finish up some of these items. Let's get that low pressure and that high pressure modified. Let's get that battery tray in there. I am just going to use that Amazon battery tray for now. I have seen what the real battery tray looks like, and I'll show you the difference. So if you look at this one, and I'll kind of hold it up like this, there is a slight difference. You can see this one does come down a little bit, and this one, than this one, right? And so it's not enough on this tray. This is just a Amazon tray. It was made by some Chinese company. But the one that I ordered from Classic Industries, that's OER remanufactured, you can see it's a little bit more dramatic in this ear being dropped down from this ear. And so that's what I'm getting. When I put the battery tray in the car, it's sitting crooked, right? I guess it's sitting crooked this way because this ear needs to come back a little bit more. So when you put it in, it's sitting crooked, which makes the bolts not line up. Now, everyone that I saw was using 3 bolts. It does have holes for 4, And from what I can tell, they do line up. So I don't know why the ones I was seeing where the guy said it was 3 bolts, basically these 2 here against the core support and then this one against the lower inner fender. This one also can go to the lower inner fender. I'm going to try and do all 4. When I put it in the car with this one, what it did is because it kicked it out this way more, or I'm sorry, this way, when it kicked it in, this hole right here would kind of be half covered. So that's what I'm saying. If this was a little bit longer, it would straighten that tray out, which would align this hole here. And this one was in the same spot. Again, there's a hole in the inner fender well for it. If there's 2 nuts, why not utilize them? So, but I can use this for now for clearance and make sure everything fits right. And then when the new tray actually comes in, unfortunately, Classic Industries did say it was on back order, along with the grill. So there's that. No big deal. Again, not in a hurry. I do have a tray that I can use for now, and switching out a battery tray is not that hard. I don't need the grill. I can always leave the grill out of the car for now. I do have quite a bit of work to do on that new grill to get it to actually fit in the car with all the correct fasteners. I did order all the correct fasteners so that there's no hokey fasteners in the grill, and when you go to take it in and out, it has all the right clips, it has all the right retaining nuts, that kind of stuff. So it's always good to try and take that little bit. I think to get the hardware on that was maybe an extra 20 bucks to actually get all the correct hardware so that this thing goes in the car correctly, and then you don't end up with a cracked grill, and you end up with trim that's straight. You know, take your time. That's what I always say. Let's do it right. So, as I was saying before the battery went dead on the camera, that should tell you, I guess, how much either I talk or I leave my equipment run without shutting it off in between takes. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. But that'll do it for this episode. I'm going to wrap things up here. I do have, I believe, one more day in the shop. I'm probably just going to clean up a little bit. Yeah, it's Tuesday. So tomorrow I'll probably put the wheel back on this car. Well, I'm going to do that before I leave today. Put the wheel back on this. I'll scoot this out of the way, make sure everything's clear so that we can get the cars out for the upcoming weekend and the 4th. And then that'll be it. And so I won't see you guys again until the Monday after the 4th. I'm going to take some time, spend it with the family, enjoy myself, and you know, have fun with the kids and my friends, and you know, that's what this is about, just celebration and enjoying your freedom. So happy 4th of July to everybody, and as always, until next time.